Yesterday, the National College Football Championship happened. For me, it was very underwhelming because I felt like the game was bad. I mean, final score was 52-24. No defense was being played. Devonta Smith had 200 yards receiving in the first half. He probably would have finished with 400 yards receiving if it wasn't for him injuring his finger. But wow, I mean, I guess if you're an Alabama fan, you feel great. If you're an Ohio State fan, you feel bad. But you're a college football fan or even a football fan, why even watch? In my opinion, it's just, I don't know. I don't like games that aren't competitive for me. I watch college football more so to scout players and to know who's who than, because these games are awesome and they're competitive.
I love college football, and I think there is definitely a much bigger gap in college football than there is in the NFL, just because there's some teams that can't compete on the level of the top-of-the-line schools. It's so tough, and you got to put so much money into it to have a program like a Clemson or an Alabama or an Ohio State. I don't believe in, a lot of people who think that college football is ruined forever and it will just be these programs for the rest of the time. You look back a decade, Clemson was a laughingstock. The Dabo Swinney hire was thought to be a total joke. People didn't understand how he got the reins of the program after a terrible season, and then he took them and he did a great job recruiting and he made a great program. So I don't think that college football is in terrible shape. I just think you're going through a dynastic run, which happens in any sport. But last night was disappointing just because Alabama was on a different level. I don't think there was anybody in the country that could have stopped them, could have kept it closer, maybe on a fluke night, but Alabama was head and shoulders above everybody else in the country this year, and it showed.
I mean, I guess one person we could talk about, or two, is Mac Jones. He threw for almost 500 yards. He had 464 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He matched Joe Burrow's performance last year in the Natty pretty much. And Najee Harris and Devonta Smith both having 3 touchdowns. Devonta Smith did that all in the first half.
Yeah.
So I guess my 2 questions are this. I'll let you answer it, then I'll answer it. Do you think Devonta Smith is a future star in the NFL? And I know it's way too early to tell, but what is your gut feeling on Devonta Smith?
If I had to say one or the other, I think he would be a Hall of Famer before he's a bust. He has all the tools. He's just not there physically yet. And that's something that will come. And you get him in an NFL program, an NFL weight plan, muscle training on an NFL diet. He will fill out. And I know he seems thin now, but you can take care of that. But what he has elsewhere, his route running, his separation. He was making Shaun Wade, the best cornerback in the country, look like nobody last night. He was going by him with ease. Shaun Wade couldn't even get a hand on him in press coverage. It was embarrassing. And the fact that Ohio State didn't adjust their coverage is mind-blowing, but against the best cornerback in the country, one-on-one, he was putting him in a blender. His hands are next level. That one catch he made last night on the sideline, going out of bounds, that's insane. He made one catch against LSU earlier this year. I know you know what I'm talking about, the one-handed catch in the back of the end zone. It's incredible. So he has the skills, the technical skills in a wide receiver that a lot of guys going into the draft don't have. My biggest concern on him would be size, and I think that's something that you could fix in an NFL program. And you listen to him speak, you hear stories about him. He just seems like a great guy, a hard worker, a guy that you would want to be a part of your franchise. I have high expectations for him. And you look back at the past for Alabama, one thing they do well is breed wide receivers. I could go on and on with the list, but Julio Jones, Amari Cooper last year, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs came from there. They had the number 1 wide receiver this year in Jalen Waddle. He went down, and then Smith steps up. So if there's one thing they do right, it's breed wide receivers. So I feel confident in saying he will be a great player at the next level.
I think Devonta Smith will be great. I don't think the weight is so much a problem because I think that's a concern a lot of people had for Justin Jefferson coming into the NFL. And he's still very skinny and scrawny. He doesn't look very muscular. As long as you can run good routes and you can get separation, I think you can make it in the NFL. Devonta Smith, like you mentioned, he's a humble superstar. It's very hard to do that when you are that good at something. And that's why people like, I think that's why we admire players or people in general that have so much success but are so grounded at the same time. You look at Tom Brady, what more is there for him to accomplish? And he is the most grounded person ever. Like, you will never hear him say something bad or him being cocky or whatever, or overconfident or arrogant. He's very down to earth. And what you said about Sean Wade, he might have been the best cornerback in the country, but I think that status got revoked because he got cooked at Clemson versus Clemson, and he got cooked yesterday. Like, he got cooked bad. But yeah, I think Justin Jefferson would be a star. He has elite route running. He's probably going to go top 5. If Miami isn't, on the train of letting go of Tua, they'll probably draft him with a 3rd overall pick. I think in the modern NFL, I believe that an elite wide receiver is more important than an elite offensive lineman in this point,
Especially when you're talking about a guy like Tua, who they have, pseudo committed to a quarterback by saying he's going to be their starter next year. Whether you believe that or not, it remains to be seen. We have months to go until March in the draft. But if Tua is their guy next year, one thing you're going to want for him is wide receivers that can get open and create space, because that's one of the things that he's been best at, is making easy throws. That's what they tried to get him this past season, but they didn't necessarily have the best set of playmakers to do that. So adding a guy like Devonta Smith would be immediately an upgrade.
Yeah, another player that obviously played a national championship was Mac Jones. He had a great statistical day. I'm not that in love with Mac Jones as everybody else is, because I think he throws a bunch of screens and RPOs. And for me, while that's nice in college, and you can have a lot of success doing that in college, in the NFL, you have to be in the right system to be successful. And for me, if he goes to Chicago, that's probably a great fit. I think he'll get drafted between the 10th to 20th pick. He could go to New England. I think that would be a good fit as well. He needs to be in an offense that's like a short passing offense. That's what I think his draft status is, like 10 to 15th, and that's what I think his ceiling is. I think he'll be a pretty good quarterback. But Justin Fields, did his performance yesterday make it so that he might after Clemson, everybody was like, this guy is a consensus 2nd overall pick. They were putting him above Zach Wilson. But I think his performance against Alabama made Zach Wilson get the nod over him.
Yeah, and it's one thing I said after the Clemson game that I'll repeat again now. You should never base your opinion on a prospect on one game. And I said that about after the Clemson game, don't get too high on him. I'll say it now after this one, don't get too low on him. He was playing a great defense in Alabama. I mean, they are sending multiple guys to the first round from that defense. And on top of that, he was coming off that hit last week against Clemson. Who knows? He said he was at 95%. I don't necessarily believe that. He would have been out there if you chopped both of his legs off. He was not missing that game. So I don't know how his health was. There's a lot of questions that go into it. I have not been that high on Justin Fields throughout the whole process. I just think that he's not a pro-ready quarterback. When you look at what Ohio State has done this year, he's been great throwing to his first read, but anywhere else his numbers drop drastically. They haven't played the toughest schedule, but I will say in his defense, he has arm strength. He showed it against Clemson. He's mobile. He can get out of the pocket. I don't think he's as athletic as everybody thinks he is, but he is definitely mobile. He can get out of the pocket and make plays. And I think 4 of the most important things about him are 4 of the most important traits in any quarterback. He's tough. He's a hard worker. He's a smart kid, and he's a good teammate by all accounts. And if you have that and you pair it with a good coach combined with his physicals, I do think he can make it at the next level. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. I would probably take Zach Wilson over him just because I think physically Zach Wilson is more ready for the NFL level. He makes more NFL throws from what I've seen. But I don't think that Justin Fields is a guaranteed bust either. I think it depends where he lands. If he lands in a good situation, I can definitely see him panning out to be a very good NFL quarterback.
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with what you just said. I think Justin Fields has a lot to work on, but him and Zach Wilson, I think they are really neck and neck.
Yeah.
They are really neck and neck. And it's going to be a tough decision for the Jets that are picking at 2.
Yeah. Realistically, I think it's all about, I think both of those guys can be successful, but you have to put a good system around them. Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield compared to Sam Darnold, I feel like it's the perfect example in their draft class. Even Lamar Jackson. I don't think that Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield were head and shoulders talent-wise above Sam Darnold in that draft class, but when you look at what the Browns and the Bills have done for those two guys compared to what the Jets have done for Sam Darnold, you can't even compare. And so I think building a great supporting cast around whoever the starting quarterback will be next year is first and foremost. And as for Mac Jones, I'm not sold on him. I know he put up a great line last night. He played great in the semifinal game. I just don't think he's an NFL quarterback. When you look back at the quarterbacks that have been drafted over the last decade, how many of them aren't mobile and are successful? Like, if you're going to be a pocket passer, you have to be dead on accurate, making ridiculous throws, especially in the current NFL. Like, who out of the current NFL quarterbacks is successful that can't get out of the pocket and run?
Kirk Cousins,
and even he was drafted a decade ago. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger,
Jimmy G.
Is that the bar you want for? I think Mac Jones can be a Jimmy G type quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think Mac Jones could be a star. But
yeah, I don't think he's going to be. I don't think
he's not an NFL quarterback though. I don't think he's going to be a
Maybe
star.
That was a little harsh.
But I don't think he's not an NFL quarterback.
I don't think he's going to be what a lot of people think he is. His job at Alabama is so easy. A lot of quarterbacks can do what he did last night. Devonta Smith had 10 yards on either side of him on half of his receptions. Najee Harris had an incredible game. And he's got Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian drawing up an incredible game plan for him against an Ohio State defense that there were some times I had no idea what they were doing. There was plays where, if you don't watch the QB School, I would recommend you go watch the QB School because he does some great breakdowns. Some of the plays that he showed, the Ohio State safeties were turning and running like it was a punt. It made no sense, and it made his job very easy. I'm not sold on him. I don't like the fact that he's not that mobile. And if you're going to be a pure pocket passer, I just would like to see more special throws out of him, and I didn't see that. So